Okay, it's 10 o'clock, and so at this time, I call to order the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners meeting for April 20th, 2023. I would ask you all to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by County Manager Patrick Cates.
Please follow me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If I could, please ask everyone here to silence their electronic devices, that would be appreciated so that we don't have any interruptions of speakers. The first item on the agenda, of course, is always public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker unless additional time is granted by the board chairperson. The Board of Commissioners uses timing lights to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. You will see a green light when you begin and then a yellow light which indicates that you have 30 seconds left and should conclude your comments. Once the light turns red, we ask you to please sit down. In addition to opening public comment will also be taken on administrative agenda items that are identified for possible action and closing public comment. If you plan to speak on a specific agenda item that is on the administrative agenda and identified for possible action, then we please ask you to provide your public comment when that agenda item is heard versus doing it at opening public comment. At this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Board of County Commissioners. We ask you to approach the podium, print your name for the record so that we have that, and then state your name and your time will begin when you begin to speak. So at this time, public comment is now open.
Good morning, Douglas County. Checkpoint 420. Checkpoint 420. In the Gregorian dying world system, today is mechanical April 20th, 2023 at 10 o'clock mechanical time, they say. We recall 420 from the perspective of the synchronic order in the works of Dr. Jose Arguelles, who put Earth Day on the map on 420 at a UC Davis in 1967. Looks a little something like this. It's called the Planetary Moon of Manifestation. Today's Kin 77. This is a little something out of the ordinary because time is art. Time is money. Time is art. Mechanized time, artificial intelligence, no basis in science whatsoever. Natural time, natural order, science of synchronicity. This is the work that catalyzed the whole Earth Festival, which became Earth Day, which became the first Woodstock gathering in 1969 in New York. Imagine that. Wow. Outrageous. The world had never seen anything like it. 3 years later, the first National Rainbow Gathering, not that Coverly would know anything about the Rainbow Gathering or Woodstock or galactic culture. He's had the same haircut since high school. He would fare well to retire soon. But yeah, the first National Rainbow Gathering in 1972 held every year in our national forests. And if you've never been to a bioregional or a national, it is amazing. You want to talk about no trace. You want to talk about some of the most brilliant people in the world who come to live roots and test themselves without money, barter, trade, ingenuity, time-based art. The pinnacle of the gathering is the World Peace Meditation on July 4th. That is the epicenter and the purpose of the gathering. That's when the entire gathering comes together to sit from daybreak till noon. and then there's lunch and a feast of friends. What would become of the National Rainbow Gathering would become a Peace Through Culture plan, which has now become Burning Man. And I suspect there's very few people here who have actually been to a Burning Man festival or a day out of time. And we invited these folks to a 2-week natural time retreat, all expenses paid, but not a single one could show up because they're locked in and they're locked down to a dying world system where time is money. And this is the root cause of the destruction of our planet today, is artificial intelligence.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment?
I'm Ian McGarry, 25-year Navy veteran and 8-year Douglas County member. Prior to the Pinion Ridge subdivision, some of the homes in my neighborhood on adjacent land to the north of Pinion Ridge have been here for almost 50 years. Our family home on Sheep Camp Road has been here since we built it in 2001. On March 10th, 2023, our neighborhood was hit with redirected and uncontrolled water coming from the Pinion Ridge subdivision. Until this date, water has never come over to Pinion Ridge, and to our knowledge has generally followed the agreed upon path as outlined in the conditions of approval signed by the county and landowners of the Pinion Ridge subdivision. Here's a brief synopsis of the history leading up to this event. In December of 2001, Douglas County Board of Commissioners approved a land division application, LDA 01083, a tentative subdivision map, allowing for the subdivision of 245 acres into 43 parcels for a neighborhood which would later be named Pinion Ridge Subdivision. The county listed a number of conditions that had to be met prior to submitting the final map and package for county approval. 3 existing intermittent stream beds were identified in the proposed subdivision and later called blue line streams in county documents. These were to be made into drainage easements and private drainage channels, which were to be perpetuated, maintained, and identified by drainage easements and deed restricted. There are a number of relevant and very important items that were missing from the final approved Pinion Ridge LDA package, one of them being a final drainage report and technical drainage study. Neither of these documents were ever completed, yet the Pinion Ridge subdivision was approved by the county anyway. Had one been done, submitted, reviewed, and adhered to, proper drainage plans could have been put into place, which would inevitably have protected our properties from what was to come in March 2023. In the years to come, the approval of building permits without grading permits required per the county design manual and subsequent construction in Pinion Ridge, paired with Pinion Ridge residents' lack of maintenance to the drainage areas, grading and building encroachment into restricted drainage areas have all influenced the Blue Line to move course over time to the very channels that were mandated to carry their waters in perpetuity right to our neighborhood, now destroying our properties and negatively affecting our future land values and curtailing our enjoyment of full property use. We are asking for the county to put us on a future Board of County Commissioners meeting agenda to publicly discuss the issue in greater detail and work towards a resolution to the drainage issues stemming from Pinion Ridge subdivision now affecting our homes and livelihoods. It is your duty as elected civic leaders to look out for your constituents. You can and must hold them accountable to the conditions of approval they signed for the right to build their homes there. It's not right, it's not okay, that now due to county negligence and negligence of the Pinion Ridge residents, we have to deal with the negative effects and financial hardship caused by the flooding. Our neighborhood was here first. Do the right thing and hold them accountable for drainage which was always on their land and mandated to be perpetuated on their land and safely conveyed to public drainage facilities via well-maintained private drainage channels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kim McGarry. I've been a citizen of Douglas County since 2000. I don't have anything written because I wasn't sure I was going to speak. However, this situation is very devastating. I built my home in 2001. I have been trying to work with the county to get this resolved as written. There's maps that clearly show where that actually private drainage channel, as it is conveyed on the map, is supposed to go, where it is supposed to be maintained down to the Basin 18, where it was supposed to be collected. On this subdivision final map, it does say that the maintenance does need to be maintained to pass the water safely through their properties, that is not to be rerouted or obstructed. On March 10th, that water hit a wall and took a 90-degree turn into a property that has been in Douglas County since 1976. It has never had watershed. It then took a western turn and went straight into my property above me on Sheep Camp Road, which it went into his garage, his home, over our wells, over our existing septic systems. It damaged my foundation, it damaged our driveway, it undermined it overflowed our sheep camp culvert because the property was hit in multiple directions. As of now, the county is telling me that it is a blue line stream that has moved. And now that is showing on my property, which makes it unbuildable and unusable. That blue line stream was not there. It looks like it empties into my living room. It goes under my neighbor's barn that has been there prior. It is all very clearly documented that it is an intermittent stream. It is not an ephemeral stream that has no boundaries. The documents from 2001 shown in the LDA show that it is an intermittent stream that is to be perpetuated for the life of the project as shown on the map. I am asking for future chance to come here and for you guys to all look at all the documents, because as it stands now, if this is not mitigated, we will continue to receive direct hits to our property, and that is unacceptable. When we were here prior and the county knew that there was a watershed there, I was unaware of it until March 10th, and the 22 years that I have lived on my property, that there was ever even a water thing coming from the mountain there, or else obviously I would have been maybe paying attention. But as it stands now, the property on 1149 Cortez Lane, where it lost the water, has no channel for that water to go. I've asked that the county go out there, and they've told me that basically, too bad, water can take whatever course it wants, and that's not okay. I've been in contact with the Attorney General's office, and they have stated to start here with your recommendations to move forward so that we can rectify this as it was approved in 2003 for these homeowners and on their deed restrictions to have some liability to the downstream properties. We sustained probably close to $30,000 worth of damage at our house right now.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Richard Glasson. I'm the judge of the Tahoe Justice Court. I'm here today to advise you that it's my intention to retire from the bench effective Thursday morning, October 5th at 9 a.m. Please mark that down. I don't want the county to be caught off guard. I selected that date and time because you have a commission meeting later that same morning. So you'll be able to have on your agenda a motion to approve a qualified person to serve out the balance of my term as is required by NRS 4.150 subsection 1A. I also suggest that you place on your agenda for May or June a measure to appoint a judge or other person to act as a judicial selection commissioner to review and interview qualified persons and to make a recommendation to your board for my successor. Thank you very much.
Mr. Glasson, Judge Glasson, Judge. I have hearing aids in both ears. Okay, so, okay, yes, that's, okay. Is there any additional public comment? Sensing no public comment, we'll bring it back here. I just noted Judge Glasson's request, so hopefully we can take care of that. Okay, and I wanted to thank him for his many, many years of service. So, and I don't know when his term of office actually expires, so we'll need to look at that as well. Okay, and the Magries left. I was going to make sure we've taken all their documents and submitted them to Community Development and to the Public Works Department for oversight there. So anyways, with that, then we'll go into the next item, approval agenda. For possible action, approval of the proposed agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed agenda as presented. Somebody?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Rice to approve the agenda, today's agenda as proposed. Sensing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is that a 5-0 vote? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I can attest that spring has sprung. My allergies are driving me crazy already. So I started my allergy medicine too late. So anyways, approval of the previous minutes for possible action, discussion to approve the draft minutes of March 10th, 2023 and the March 13th, 2023 emergency meetings and the March 16th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Noasad, seconded by Commissioner Rice to approve the draft minutes as included in the packet. Any discussion on those? Sensing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the previous minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Consent calendar. Entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent calendar, items A through S.
Okay.
As presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Tarkanian to approve the consent calendar, items A through S. Any further discussion? Sensing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, moving right along this morning. Go into the administrative agenda. Item 1 for presentation only, and I'll come down front to do that. And I'll be joined by our Sheriff Dan Coverly, and I believe our District Attorney Mark Jackson and others. So. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Proclamation 2023. I need to read this into the record. For presentation only, ceremonial presentation of Proclamation 2023P-039, proclaiming the week of April 23rd, 2023 through April 29th, 2023 as Crime Victims' Rights Week in Douglas County. And I'll read the proclamation. Our clerk treasurer is out on vacation this week, so she hasn't attested to this, so you won't be able to take this wherever you want to take it. But anyways, so I'll read this. Proclamation 2023P-039 declaring April 23rd to the 29th, 2023 as Crime Victims' Rights Week in Douglas County. Whereas in 1982, the President's Task Force on Victims of Crime envisioned a national commitment to a more equitable and supportive response to victims. Whereas this commemorative week celebrates the energy, perseverance, and commitment that launched the victims' rights movement, inspired its progress, and continues to advance the cause of justice for crime victims. Whereas crime can leave a lasting impact on any victim. Whereas the term victim is more than just a label and has legal standing and protections that go along with it. Whereas with the unwavering support of their communities and the resources available, victims and survivors will be empowered to face their grief, loss, fear, anger, and hope without fear of judgment, and will feel understood, heard, and respected. Whereas serving victims and rebuilding their trust restores hope to victims and survivors as well as supports thriving communities. And whereas honoring the rights of victims, including the rights to be heard, to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect, and working to meet their needs, rebuilds their trust in the criminal justice system. And whereas the Douglas County Sheriff and the Douglas County District Attorney are dedicated to assisting and strengthening victims and survivors in the aftermath of crime, building resilience in our communities, and our victim responders working for justice for all victims and survivors, victims of crime, and providing a voice to crime victims and their families. And whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to recommit to ensuring that all victims of crime are afforded their rights. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, along with the Douglas County Sheriff and Douglas County District Attorney, that April 23rd through the 29th is Crime Victims' Rights Week in Douglas County, Nevada, attested or adopted this 20th day of April 2023 by the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Gentlemen.
All right, I'm gonna take 4 days for that one.
Can you please sit down?
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Mr. Okay, thank you. Please.
Thank you, Chairman Gardner and commissioners. Unfortunately, the worst part of our job is being the chief public prosecutor, and the sheriff being the chief law enforcement officer is dealing with victims. But we also are honored every day that we have an opportunity to make changes in their lives. And we have some people that we work with. I'm going to have you come up here. Bill, Brian, Shannon, Connie. I wanted to introduce you to some members of our team here in Douglas County that work with victims on a daily basis. Right here, this is Bill Hellman. Bill Hellman is my chief investigator, and he supervises the victim witness unit in the district attorney's office. To his left is Shannon Simmons. She is the victim witness coordinator. As you recall, this is a position that I requested last budget cycle. Probably one of the best requests that I have made, and she is dedicated full-time to contacting victims once there has been an arrest or we're notified that there is a victim through a submission from the sheriff's office. And she works with those victims at the local level and also at the statewide level for victim compensation, and to be their advocate and their voice in the courtrooms. I'm going to hold off on Connie because the sheriff's going to do that introduction. And then this is Brian Putzer. Brian Putzer is our SVRT investigator. That's the Special Victims Response Team. His position has been funded entirely since 2008 by the U.S. Department of Justice, Office on Violence Against Women. Pursuant to that grant, Investigator Putzer is involved in all of the domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking cases that occur in Douglas County. And that's had a significant impact. Prior to the creation of our SVRT program, we had about a 10 to 15% conviction rate on domestic violence cases in Douglas County. And for the last 5 years, we've averaged an 84% conviction rate. So first and foremost, our priority is safety of the victim. And second to that is accountability of the offender in order to break that cycle of violence. So I wanted to introduce those 3 members of our victim witness unit in the DA's office, and now I'll turn it over to Sheriff Coverly.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a really important piece to getting justice for these victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Connie Richardson is an advocate for the victims, and they meet with her, and she helps them any way that she can navigate the legal system, which is intimidating for regardless of what side you're on. But then she helps them to get what they need, the resources they need to be able to get back to normal and to be successful. And so I echo what District Attorney Mark Jackson said, that the conviction rate has increased, which is good. But the biggest part of this is we're helping those that have been victims to get past the whole incident get on with their lives and get back to normal, which I think is extremely important and provides them with some justice and some closure. So can't thank you enough. You guys are a huge part of this program and make a huge impact in the community for the good. So thank you.
Stay right here a second. Get your writing all right. Yep, thank you. Appreciate you guys coming.
Okay, so we'll move to item number 2 for possible action discussion on one appointment to the Vacation Home Rental Advisory Board to fill a vacancy due to the resignation of a member to serve the remaining unexpired term of April 20th, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. So that's of this year. So, Mr. Cates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Patrick Cates. So with the resignation of Mr. Sloan, the county advertised for applicants for this position. I should note that this position is for a VHR permit holder, and you will be filling this for the current term of Mr. Sloan, which expires at the end of this year, December 31st, 2023. We received 4 applicants. Mr. Ken Burrows and Heidi Gunter were 2 of those applicants, both of which we have identified as not holding VHR permits. I don't believe either is here today. We also have Drew Murrin and Glenn Wolfson, both of whom are VHR permit holders, and I do believe both of them are here for you to consider today. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments?
I'd like to hear from the 2 that are here that are qualified.
Okay. Is Mr. Murrin online, or is he here? I don't see him here. And Mr. Wolfson, is he here? Okay. Yes, okay. So we will hear from both of those individuals. Commissioner?
Did he reach the qualifications? It looked like on the packet that he doesn't live in Tahoe.
Right. It's my understanding that the current code indicates, as if I'm correct, the current code indicates that this position must be a current vacation home rental permit holder and live in the Tahoe Township. So I don't believe that by our records, Mr. Burrows fits either of those categories. So I don't know that he is eligible for appointment to this board. Is that is that the interpretation of our Chief Deputy District Attorney, Mr. Ritchie?
Thank you, Chairman. Doug Ritchie with the Douglas County District Attorney's Office. That's correct. Under the current county code, the composition of the VHR board must consist of 2 members who reside at the lake who hold a VHR permit, 2 members who reside at the lake who do not hold a VHR permit, and then 1 member from the Carson Valley from East Fork Township. This vacancy is a permit holder. So you would need to find a member, a replacement who lives at the lake who has a current VHR permit.
From people that don't qualify?
I don't see really any point in doing that. Personally, I mean, yeah. We can.
If he doesn't qualify,
Then,
Mr.
yeah,
Chairman?
Mr. Cates?
I would note that the board does have some discretion, should you not find somebody that's qualified for this role, that you could appoint somebody that doesn't meet the criteria. However, you do have 2 applicants who are qualified. I would suggest speaking to them, and if for whatever reason you don't find that satisfactory, then perhaps you could talk to Mr. Burrows.
So I guess I have a question here. As I see it, we have two applicants. What process do we go about in seeking candidates for this position? And is it absolutely critical that we appoint today? And if we did not send out an email request to all of the vacation home rental owners, permit holders in the Tahoe Township, would that be a possible aspect of delaying this and perhaps seeking a greater amount of applicants from the Tahoe Township? And we have our VHR manager, Ernie Strelo, here today, so I think he can perhaps address that question.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Nosat.
I would ask, if we knew that we have to have current permit holders and residing in the township, why we even bother to put people who were not qualified on this list?
I can't answer that question. But
Well, then I would suggest that any further probing the field to get additional ones to give a broader possible pool of possible people who could serve, I think that's already been done, hasn't it? Otherwise, we wouldn't have these applicants here.
well, I guess my question in that regard, Commissioner Nosad, is that while we did publicize it in the newspaper, could you perhaps maybe our VHR manager can address all of that, how we went out and sought applicants for this position, and then we can address that.
Ernie Strelo for the record. It's nice to see everybody today. We did put an ad in the Record Courier a month ago. Our court clerk, county clerk, compiled the names of the people that applied for the position and did the due diligence on the voter rolls, as well as looking at who had permits that were active and who didn't, and who lived in the township. And so, as the county manager stated, there's, I think on your list, there's 2 that have permits that live in the Tahoe Township. There's one that applied, Mr. Burrows had a permit until last month, and we revoked it. And he went through an appeal last month at the VHR meeting last month. But he had applied prior to the revocation and the appeal. And then the other person, I can't remember the names in front of me because I don't have them here, but there was one that didn't. I'm sorry. Yeah, so there's 2 that meet the criteria, but as the Chief Deputy DA mentioned, that there is options if you don't feel that any of the candidates meet the criteria, you can go outside of that.
I just had a question. I was surprised by the lack of numbers that applied, and then you mentioned that you advertised in the Record Courier. Why wouldn't you advertise it in the Tahoe paper? Because it has to be a Tahoe resident, right? This is, Mr. Sloan's a Tahoe resident.
For the record, Patrick Cates, yeah, they ran stories in both the Tahoe Daily Tribune and the Record Courier about the appointment. Sorry.
All right, then, Mr. Chairman, let me propose a simile. We're going to run for county commissioner. We open it up for county commissioner. 1 applies. 1 applies. So do we go out looking for more?
Some people do.
Mr. Chairman.
No, that I hear your point, Mr. Nosad. Commissioner Rice.
I need to disclose that one of the candidates is a person who I have met with socially, and I don't believe that would have been any interference with my judgment as to whom to appoint, but I concur that in all fairness, we should make sure that the other permit holders are aware of the fact, and a lot of people do not read either of the newspapers. Number one, the Tahoe newspaper can be very difficult to find from sometimes, and unless you go to the right market. but they do not any longer have home delivery, and in the newspaper is distributed through various points. But I would feel comfortable delaying this decision until we can study it further.
Commissioner Hales, any questions? Commissioner Nosad, you had another?
I'm questioning the requirement to study it further. It's been put out in the papers, regardless of whether you go to the store or not to get it. The fact remains that the plea was put out both in the valley and in the lake, and we have four responses, two of whom are not qualified, two who are qualified. If you're going any further, then you are leaving yourself open for, let's find somebody who might agree with me.
Commissioner Hales, you wanted to add some comments?
Well, since we're here, I would say we should hear from Mr. Wolfson. And if Mr. Murin's online, I'd like to hear from him. I have a couple questions for both of them. And then we'll see how we feel. That's what I would suggest.
Good process, I think. I think you're right. We should hear from the two candidates who are eligible, and then we'll offer public comment, and then we'll come back to the board for a possible decision. Okay? So I don't know that Mr. Murin is here. I don't see him, and I know him. And I have to disclose also that I know him socially, so but I don't anticipate that being a problem for me. And we'll hear from Mr. Wolfson, and then we'll go to public comment. Mr. Wolfson, please.
I'm Glenn Wolfson, and I live at 643 Lookout in Zephyr Heights. I bought my home in 1998, and I moved here full-time over 10 years ago, and I'm a current permit holder that I self-manage with my daughter. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, sir. How long have you been a permit holder?
Pretty much since the beginning.
That would be 2004.
When it first started, I couldn't tell you the year. The application was $100, and the code officer came out and said you can have 17 people in your house, which I never wanted, and over the years I've reduced it to 10. So I'm currently a 10-guest Tier 2 property. And as far as I know, I've never had an issue with any of my rentals. In fact, it was one of my neighbors that told me about this opening and suggested that I apply for it.
Yeah, the issue isn't whether you've had problems or not. It's a matter of how you will serve on the board.
I'm not sure I heard what you said, Commissioner.
I said we're not here to determine whether or not you have had noise at your property, which you say you have not, but that has nothing to do with how you will be able to serve on this board.
That wasn't a question, that was an observation, I believe, right? Yes. So, Commissioner Hales, you had questions?
So is your property advertised right now for 10 occupancy of 10 people?
Correct. It's a Tier 2 10 occupancy permit.
And that's how it's advertised?
And what?
Is that how it's advertised right now?
Yes. Yeah, it was renewed early March for the next year. So I just recently went through the process again.
Questions from Commissioner Tarkanian, Commissioner Rice? Okay. Okay. I don't know that I have any questions.
Okay. Thank you.
So if there's no questions, we'll go to public comment. Is there any public comment? Mr.
I am Ken Burrows, and I am a Douglas County resident. We just recently did get
Could you sign in?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. We recently did have two permits up at State Line area, and they were recently revoked due to the fact that we were advertising, trying to follow the Fair Housing Act. I do own a local mortgage company here in the area that specializes in mortgages. I've been in the business for 30 years, so I was trying to follow the Fair Housing Act, and we were advertising 10, which was our occupancy, and then 18 and under didn't count per the Fair Housing Act regulation. Well, the board voted on, even though two of the members were missing, they voted against us and did revoke our licenses. But from what I understand, as of April 10th, the commission voted to allow 18 and under now for the vacation rental. So we will be filing an appeal to hopefully get our permits back. We didn't think that was an option at the time, so I did list the homes for sale, even though we really would rather not. Me and my wife manage our properties here, and we're long time standing residents, so we'd very much like to appeal to get our licenses back based on that premise on how we got them revoked. But I do have a law background, and I do believe I'd make a great candidate for the actual VHR board, because I see both sides. I see the regulations that are needed, and what's also for the local community that rents their homes, and it's viable income, for those families as well. But I do believe the 18 and under is a big system, because if you rent a one-bedroom condo and you have two children, well, now you're forced to go up to a two-bedroom condo, which doubles the price. And that is, by definition, the Fair Housing Act. Even though I know there's some discrepancies in legal jargon on that, but that's kind of, I just wanted to comment on that, so thank you.
So, Mr. Burrows, as long as you're up there, do we have any other public comment? If there's no other public comment, if you don't mind, indulge me, I'd like to ask Mr. Burrows a question. Where exactly do you live?
256 North Benjamin Drive, State Line, Nevada.
It says here that you're not a Tahoe Township resident
I don't know where it says that.
on our notes here.
Okay.
So
It's one of the requirements too. That's one of the requirements too. And
right, and that's so the problem is that in order to even consider your application, it would have to be allowable in code, and that code doesn't currently allow that. Okay, so for us to consider that, then we would be violating our own code. And I hope you can appreciate and understand that.
Yes.
We've had a number of questions come before us over the last couple of years in that same capacity, right? Where we would, in order to approve it, we would have to violate our own code. And I don't think that that's a good idea for this commission. So I hope you understand that.
Understandable.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, thank you. Okay, sensing no further public comment, we'll bring it back to the board for further discussion. Your feelings?
Here's my preference. Since we have two who hold permits currently, I'm looking at those, and when I look at Mr. Murin, I see that he lives in the same neighborhood as Lauren Romaine, who is already a member of the VHR board. I'm really interested on that board to have representation from several neighborhoods in Tahoe. So that is a real concern of mine regarding Mr. Murin. And so that, for me, leaves one person in the running, which is Mr. Wolfson. And I really appreciate him being here today and him being willing to serve. I would like to have more than one choice. So my preference would be to send some emails out to our Douglas County permit holders, notifying them if that's a doable thing without hours and hours of work, and see if we can get some more interest and then look at an appointment at a later date.
Commissioner Turkanian?
Yeah, I like Mr. Wolfson. I think he would be a good choice. I think if this was advertised already and put out there, we should have, I agree with Commissioner Noah said, we don't have to do it anymore. I agree with not having multiple advisory board members from the same neighborhood. That was a very good point by Commissioner Hales. And also, Mr. Oh my goodness, Murin gave a very passionate, upset speech at the last VHR meeting, which would raise into question whether he's biased or not. For those reasons, I would make a motion when we get done with it to appoint Mr. I'm running a blank on his name. Wolfson, there you go, thank you. In fact, that's the DA in Las Vegas, I should know that.
You visit with the DA in Las Vegas a lot?
He visits me all the time.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman,
Nossad?
yeah, I concur with Commissioner Tarkanian. We should conclude this business today, not to incur the expense of having to go out and hit the newspapers again or send various emails. I think and the cost of the staff doing that. So let's just move on. I agree that Glenn Wolfson would be the person to go.
Okay. So, and it comes over to me. So I noticed the same thing. We really, by our code, are eliminated the top two, the Ken Burrows and Heidi Gunter. And I noticed the same fact that our current vice chair of our VHR board, Lauren Romaine, lives in the same neighborhood, or Drew Murrin lives in the same neighborhood as hers, and we have 39 identified neighborhoods. So I think we need some diversity there. I was inclined to take a look maybe for more, but at the same point in time, this is only an appointment that's for the remaining part of this year. So it's basically 7 months now, right? 7 or 8 months. So 8 months. So I suppose we can, give Mr. Wolfson a test run here for 7 months, and when it comes back to us in January, or actually I think this year we make our appointments in December because we don't have any changes of the commissioners this year going into that. So I think that's what our normal procedure is to do all of our appointments in December, right, this year. So on this off year. So I'd be comfortable in giving him a test ride for 7 months. Okay. So if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
You're going to make me talk now. Mr. Chairman, I move that we select Glenn Wolfson as the replacement member for the VHR board.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Nossad, seconded by Commissioner Tarkanian, to appoint Glenn Wolfson to the unexpired term of April 20th, 2023 to December 31st, 2023 to the VHR board. I just had one additional question, and that is availability. I think they meet on the third Wednesday, Mr. Strelo, fourth Wednesday of the month, and that's in the Tahoe Township. At what times? 1 o'clock. Okay. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you're available for that, because if you're not available, then, yeah, okay. Okay, sensing no other questions, we'll entertain a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion is 5-0. Mr. Wolfson, I hope you know what you've gotten yourself into, buddy. So, yeah, okay. And you can give us a test run also, right? So, congratulations. Okay. Okay, so we'll go now to Item number 3 on the agenda for presentation only, introduction of ordinance 2023-1616, an ordinance removing Chapter 2.52 Cave Rock Water Advisory Board and Chapter 2.54 Skyland Water Advisory Board from Title II of the Douglas County Code, Administration and Personnel, being presented by our Public Works Manager, Phil Richter. Is that a correct title? No? Director. Public Works Director. Sorry, I didn't want to.
Do I read it back into the record? Is that all I'm doing? Okay. Phil Richter, Director of Public Works, for the record. It will seem a little redundant here, but as the first reading of this ordinance per the NRS, I will simply read what you just read. And that is that this is the introduction of ordinance 2023-1616, an ordinance which will remove Chapter 2.52, which is the Cave Rock Water Advisory Board, and Chapter 2.54, Skyland Water Advisory Board, from Title II of the Douglas County Code, which is part of the administrative and personnel codes. Are there any questions?
Why would we be doing this?
Phil Richter, for the record. In 2019, we consolidated the water systems for Douglas County. So all of the two water systems, or three water systems at the lake, and all of the water systems in the valley are now consolidated under one, as one entity with one billing rate, one rate structure, and one administrative structure. And as such, these advisory boards are no longer advisory to an existing water district.
Okay. I only ask that question because I think it's good for us to articulate that to the public. So as to why exactly why we would entertain this. So other commissioners, any other questions or observations that you have? Okay. So this will be coming back to us on May what?
We are bringing this back as a final reading on May 18th.
Second meeting in May. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions by the board, I guess we'll wait until we hear it on May 18th. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, item number 4 for possible action. This is please bear with me because it's a long item to read. Discussion of the fact finder's written findings and recommendations for resolution of impasse issues in the fact finding between the Douglas County Sheriff's Protective Association, Deputies and Investigators Unit, more commonly known as DCSPA, and Douglas County, Nevada, FMCS case number 220714-07652, issued March the 9th, 2023 by David Gaba, an independent fact finder. Discussion may include, but is not limited to, the issues of the party submitted to the fact finder for recommendation, the fact finder's report for findings and recommendations, and analysis of the impact of the findings and recommendations on compensation and reimbursement, funding levels, benefits, hours, working conditions, or other terms and conditions of employment, in addition to the overall fiscal impact of the findings and recommendations from the report pursuant to NRS 288.200. And it's being presented by County Manager Patrick Cates and our Assistant County Manager Jennifer Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Patrick Cates. I do have a prepared statement I'd like to share with you today. Douglas County and the Douglas County Sheriff's Protective Association have been engaged in labor negotiations as prescribed by Nevada revised statutes for just over a year now. The current labor agreement expired at the end of June of last year. Today, we are here to present to you and the public the fact finder's report for the Deputies Bargaining Unit. In terms of process, extensive negotiations resulted in substantial common ground, but disagreements remained. An impasse was reached last year, which law then requires the two sides' proposals to be submitted to a fact finder, a third party who issues written findings and recommendations. That report is before you and the public today. Page 1,871 of your packet provides a summary of the two sides' proposals, and the fact finder's report begins on page 1,820. It was a big package this time. I must note this report applies only to the deputies' bargaining unit. The proposals for the sergeant's bargaining units have yet to be submitted to a fact finder. Neither party is bound to agree with the fact finder's recommendations. It is one step in the process, designed to bring the parties together voluntarily by making public the independent report and the two parties' offers. Should the two sides not come to a resolution, the ultimate step is binding arbitration. I am pleased to tell you in the public that discussions between the county and DC SPA continue. I believe we are very close to a final agreement with both bargaining units that reflects the recommendations of the fact finder's report before you today, with some minor modifications. We hope to have that final agreement ready for your consideration at the May 4th board meeting. Of course, commissioners have been engaged throughout this process, providing direction during private briefings as allowed by law. I am reviewing these facts for the benefit of the public. This board and Douglas County are deeply committed to the support of our law enforcement personnel. We recognized early that our compensation for deputies and sergeants was not keeping up with the market 5 years into a labor agreement. This board provided direction to make offers designed to address those concerns and was willing to make concessions to close the gap between the two parties. I thank you for your leadership on this important issue. I want to thank all parties involved in this process. The county's negotiating team, consisting of HR Director Wendy Lang, Assistant County Manager Jennifer Davidson, Chief Civil Deputy Doug Ritchie, and Deputy DA Cynthia Gregory, and DC SPA's negotiating team. They both dedicated many hours working through the issues to close the gap between the parties. CFO Terry Willoughby and I spent a lot of time to help guide our team to make sure we ended up with a proposal the county could afford and this board could accept. Although we have to wait a couple of weeks to bring closure to these negotiations, everyone involved deserves credit for getting us to this point today. I think we all feel confident that the final agreement will make Douglas County competitive in attracting the best and brightest law enforcement talent. And not to end on a low note, but I have to point out that the fact finder's report recommends a 2-year agreement. Since the current agreement expired in June of last year, the county and DC SPA will be back at the negotiating table next year. But after a 5-year agreement, the two parties made huge strides to course correct to keep us competitive with this agreement. So I'm hopeful there will be much less to talk about and the process will proceed more swiftly to the mutual benefit of both when we re-engage next year. I have Assistant County Manager Jennifer Davidson here to assist in answering any questions you may have. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Davidson, anything you wish to add?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Assistant County Manager Jennifer Davidson, I have nothing further to add. The information regarding the fact finder's report, including a summary of the positions that we took going into fact finding, is included in the packet, as well as the financial impact. We're happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Noah.
Yes. Is that the document you were referring to?
Yes, Commissioner, that is the summary.
Thank you.
I had a couple, just to point things out. On page 1871, where it talks about what the deputies requested and what we were offering in salary, we were actually offering a higher salary than they had requested, correct?
That is correct, Commissioner. Jennifer Davidson, Assistant County Manager, for the record. Our offer at the time of fact finding does put our salary range slightly higher than what the association had requested.
And before the fact finding occurred, we had offered step-ups, which is one of the main issues that they wanted, before the fact finding, correct?
Correct, Commissioner. We offered steps. It was an important request of the association that we consider a movement away from our current merit system, which is a pay-per-performance evaluation system, to this new proposed step system.
And with the addition of both of those two, which was very important to the deputies, we offer to pay all of their increase or all of the PERS retirement, correct?
That is a condition that we are currently in the process of negotiating.
I'm saying we
It's not a
offered
current-
that.
The PERS was offered. It was a term that was discussed as part of this negotiation process.
Didn't we offer to pay 6% of the PERS?
So, Commissioner, it's a little bit more complicated. It's not exactly a straightforward answer. What I would tell you is that we have 2 bargaining units as part of this association. And at one point, we made an official offer regarding PERS to the sergeant's bargaining unit. But I think the implication was that we would like to see the 2 units be treated similarly for equity.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Nosat.
question. In the meetings that I sat in on, there were 2 major figures, numbers. One of them was PERS, and that was in the 150,000 range. Whatever it was, that was within the 160, I don't remember what it was. 104, okay. And then the other one, rather, are those the 2 figures that we're talking about here right now?
Excuse me, Commissioners, just for clarification, I believe what you're discussing is the details of an agreement that will be coming forward to you on May 4th. The fact finder's proposal does not include a recommendation regarding PERS, or the specific $398,000 number you're referencing, sir, is with regard to a lump sum payment. And I really should not discuss that agreement any further because we will be hearing that in May.
Understand, thank you.
Okay. I just know that this has been a very laborious process for the last year, and I'm very proud of what our negotiating team did, and I'm also, my compliments also to the sheriff's negotiating team. I thought they did a good job as well. And so, anyways, I have no further comments in regards to this fact finder's report. This was a requirement, as I understand it. Once the fact finder issued his report, it had to come to us within a given amount of time. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. We were required pursuant to statute to present this at a public hearing within 45 days.
Okay. And then the further process here is, and I want to make sure we understand the further process is for offers, final offers basically, or offers still can come back and forth between us and them, and then hopefully we'll come to a conclusion or an agreement on this, which I understand is very imminent. Is that a fair statement? Okay. So
This as to the recommended motion was rather confusing. A lot of verbiage in the last sentence says no action required by county commissioners. So are we doing any action today or not?
I don't know that we're required to take any action. This was a report that was required to come to us, but I don't know that we could accept the fact finder's report, I suppose. Mr. Ritchie?
Thank you, Doug Ritchie with the Douglas County District Attorney's Office. You're correct. This is just required to be brought forward to both the board and to the public. No action has to be taken. However, this is agendized so that the board could provide direction to your negotiating team, to the staff, if you were so inclined.
Commissioner House, you had a question?
I just want to state how pleased I am that the county's in a position to compete, to offer wages that will bring us the law enforcement that we need. And I'm very happy that we're able to do that.
Good observation. Okay. If there's no further comments, we'll go to public comment on this item.
Bud Justice with the Maladministration Audit Committee for Douglas County. It's impossible to speak in whole systems without offending people, but we must do what must needs be done. Douglas County does a lot of things well. Efficiency isn't one of them. Been in this valley for 40 years. Douglas County Sheriff has never, ever once extended the equality of justice, peace, or safety to our household. We have a dozen lawsuits coming against you, Sheriff Coverly, and your debt collectors, your pirates who have been harassing, profiling, targeting my household, whose business partner, Mark Gardner, had me falsely arrested on March 2nd to try to deter me from attending this Board of County Commissioner meeting. Your gunmen come into my house at 1:30 at night to intimidate me and my household. Your Sergeant Duffy threatening to run me out of town, claiming that I have a mental disorder. That's just scratching the surface, Dan. This is serious business, man. There's not one of these officers who actually upholds his oath or his pledge. If you ask him, this is all about the negotiations, if you ask him how many articles are in the U.S. Constitution, none of them can tell you. And the reason why we have the crime and the situation in this country today is because people do not read their state and federal constitution and do not uphold their oaths. It is everyone's responsibility to keep the peace. Now, when you're on the clock doing a 4-day, 14-hour shift, you get grumpy, Dan. These guys, you know, they're human beings. You can't work them like machines. They get edgy. They need to be, to rest and to be organized in a way that is not taxing their nervous system. They have a tendency to blow up in your face because a lot of them train with steroids and are tired. And they want to be professionals and not employees, subjects, citizens, slaves. They're tired of time as money. We are all burned out on the organizational principle that has got us fighting all the time. We're trying to help it. We have a new knowledge base. We have a new way of seeing things if you would just give it half a chance. It's everybody's responsibility to keep the peace. We should have our peace officers with the peace plan and new knowledge going into the law of time into these schools and saying, hey, don't be afraid of the law. Right now we have an overprotective racketeering system which is not only intimidating but prevents you from getting your business done in the courthouse.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson.
They
You've
come down
exceeded
on
your-
you like
you've
nobody's
exceed-
business.
Mr. Gibson, you've exceeded your time. Please take your seat. I would remind the public, for further public comment, I would remind the public that what we're doing is we're speaking to the fact finder's report and the fact finder's report only. Please limit your comments to item number 6, or no, item number 4, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Good morning, Dave Brady for the record. He makes me look like a Girl Scout. As a former chief negotiator, I took the time to meet with Mark Gardner, Chairman Gardner, many months ago and provided some advice that I thought would be worthwhile. The first of which was to waive Article 2, Section C of the existing contract. It's the craziest language I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. It's inappropriate, unfair, and it lends itself to the potential for the county to bargain in bad faith. The second thing I suggested was immediately provide for the 7% market adjustment and the 2% COLA for the deputies. Third was to provide parity to surrounding cities and counties. Fourth was to recognize retroactivity in its truest sense. And 5, keep negotiating. Well, in looking at the material that you've been provided, there's good news and there's bad news. I can't speak for the fact finder, but the fact finder saw it the same way I did and eliminated Article 2, subsection C. It needed to go, and I applaud them for that. The bad news, the approach to retroactivity is something that scares me, and here's why. Given a lump sum benefit can be somewhat potentially unfair, inappropriate, and more importantly, it sets a dangerous precedent as a past practice that can be used for future negotiations. Well, we did it that way last year, so we're going to do it this way this year. Additionally, my understanding is that lump sum payout is not subject to PERS. How is that fair? I don't think that it is. I think that in going forward, it's critically important that the county recognize retroactivity in its truest sense and make sure that going forward, and I would expect hopefully in this contract language that you include that lump sum payments are not going to be the order of the day, that retroactivity will be appreciated in its truest sense, and that will be recognized for all future negotiations. If that language was not in this contract, I as a commissioner would not vote for it. Thank you.
Additional public comment?
For the record, Justin Fricke, President of the Douglas County Sheriff's Protective Association. Nobody could be blind that this has been a real struggle for this contract negotiation. I mean, everybody, it's been a real struggle. It's very hard to figure out how we can make these changes work, how to bring us up to be even with other agencies so we don't lose personnel, so we could retain the good employees that we have. I think we're getting to that point that we can now. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We've needed help by getting a fact finder to point us in the right direction. We've started to make a proposal based on the recommendations that that fact finder gave. Both sides have really worked hard on this. I got to give thanks to the county negotiation team. Jen Davison, she's not in here, but she did a heck of a job. She is right here, yes. Thank you. I mean, I didn't see you where you were before.
I was going to say, I
you've been the
borrow
voice
your
of reason
glasses,
for all
my
of us.
glasses.
Okay, Doug Ritchie, Cynthia Gregory, Wendy Lang, they came forward with ideas that we never did. And that's part of the negotiation process. Everybody has to come together with different ideas and teach each other, and we've learned a lot over this. I want to give thanks to the community. This has been very trying. Their patience has ran thin. They've supported us 100%, all of us employees. We've felt that. Thank you, Sheriff. You've given us support to all the employees. We know the tools that you give us, we can do the job, we can do it well. The safety of this community is much better hands with you. So thank you for all that you do to support us. And thank you, commissioners. This has been a real struggle back and forth, not being able to talk to each other. I think in the future we can go good places. We feel the support that you guys do have. In times of negotiation, it's hard to see that, but truly we do see the support that you give to all of us in law enforcement. So thank you for that. I think in the future we can go forward and make any negotiation process easier after what we've been through, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. The future of Douglas County is good with you guys, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fricke. Additional public comment? Sensing no further public comment, we'll bring it back to the board. Commissioner Tarkanian.
Well, I just wanted to say I appreciate that you're thankful for us. I think through efforts that were done publicly, it made it look like the county commission was not in support of the the deputies. I think that was unfortunate. I understand why the tactic was done, because it puts pressure on us to agree to more stuff, and we certainly did agree to a lot more stuff. But when information is put out to the public comparing the previous contract that was voted on and accepted by the deputies 3 years before and not by this board, it's misleading, and it makes this county commission looks bad in the public eye. I tried the best I could to explain what our offer was when we started, which was much higher than what was being put out in the public. And in the future, I just hope that when both sides are discussing this, and if they are going to go public with it and have people speak on their behalf as surrogates, that it's more accurate of what's being put out there so both sides understand. Look, there's no doubt the deputies were underpaid at the end of their contract. The county commission realized that and made a very, very substantial offer at the beginning. You did a great job in getting more, and that's what your job is for. But I think the county commission has been supportive all the way across the board, and to have people think we weren't giving them a pay raise and the 2% pay raise when everybody else did and so forth was a little bit misleading.
Okay. Commissioner Nosa.
Referring to this chart, we have DSPCA offered dated 11/9 of 22, And then we offered on 12/16 of '22. What was the result of our offer? What came after that? Was there counter proposals?
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I can answer that question. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Jennifer Davidson, Assistant County Manager for the record. The two dates that you reference in that summary page are the two dates of fact-finding. Those proposals were made first by the association in November and then subsequently by Douglas County in response on that second date of fact-finding in December. The result was continued conversations and the fact finder's report that's before you today, and ultimately the agreement that we're about to bring before you in May.
Okay.
Well, I'll just read the second line. Return existing paragraph 2B language. Maintain existing language. The agreement will remain in full force and effect during the subsequent labor negotiations. Our response was delete paragraph 2B, remove language in the agreement. The language in the agreement will remain in full force and effect during the subsequent labor negotiations. What's the difference between these two?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and also Mr. Ritchie, feel free to jump in if I may speak. Jennifer Davidson, Assistant County Manager for the record. So I believe the language that you are referring to is in Article 2. It is the language also that Mr. Brady referred to in public comment. The fact finder's recommendation regarding that language is they agreed with the association. And so that the recommendation from the fact finder is to change it in accordance and remove that language. Ultimately, what that, as it applies to, step increases and what was the second piece? Step increases will continue. Basically, that existing conditions of the contract in terms of salary increases relative to it was longevity. Longevity payments and step increases will continue. So if we end up in a situation in the future where the contract does expire, the expectation will be, in accordance with the agreement moving forward, that steps will continue to occur and increases in longevity subject to years of service would continue to occur while we are in negotiations for future contracts.
So, as I understand it, what the fact finder's report is to take a look at their offer, take a look at our offer, and decide or try to make a recommendation on how we can blend those two offers in an acceptable manner for the DC Spa and us. And then a actual contract will then come to us based probably on those findings. Is that a good assessment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So the intent of fact-finding is to help the parties reach conclusion, get a resolution. Ultimately, the board has a couple of options before you today. You can choose to take no action. You can choose to give us direction to continue to pursue an agreement subject to the recommendations of the fact finder's opinion, or you could choose to move to that last step in the statute, which would be to go to a binding arbitration. That is not the recommendation from staff today. We are recommending, because we have been able to have conversations with the association since the fact finder's report came out, that you take no action today and that we bring an agreement forward to you at a later date, hopefully that May meeting. I see no reason why an agreement won't come forward on that day.
So as I understand it, I guess it's okay to go down the road of saying that an agreement is pending. Is that a fair statement? Or we can say that, and we expect that to come before this board on May 4th, based mostly on what the fact finders found in the melting of the two thoughts process. Is that right? So today we're not required. We needed to show this to the public. We needed to absorb it ourselves, and then. But we don't have to take any action because we're not approving anything really here today. It was just making sure that the public got their opportunity to see this. Is that right? So anyways, if there's no other questions, then we can release these folks and go to the next item because there's no action required. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing something on May 4th. Mr. Fricke, thank you very much for your... Okay, we'll go to item number 5 for possible action discussion to approve a $145,000 construction manager at risk CMAR contract with Core West Incorporated DBA Core Construction for pre-construction services for the Douglas County Justice Center project and authorize county manager to execute any required documents. And this is being presented by Mr. Scott McCullough. I'm never sure what your title is.
Scott McCullough, Douglas County Project Manager. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. First, before we get into the consideration for the contract, I want to do a delivery method comparison and a project update. The PowerPoint will do that, I believe. Come on. Yep, you knew that was going to happen. Okay. Thank you. What is delivery method? It's the way a project we planned, designed, and constructed. Today we're going to discuss 2 types of delivery methods. There are many more, but the 2 that we're going to focus on today are design, bid, build, and construction manager at risk, CMAR. Design, bid, build, defining characteristics, 2 separate contracts between the architect and builder. The architect produces a complete set of plans and specs. It's a fixed price contract with lump sum for consideration, and it's a low bid selection. And it also follows the linear process for delivery.
Mr. McCullough, I'm sorry. I had a brain fart there. We've been here for an hour and a half, almost an hour and a half now. Can you delay this and we can take a 10-minute break, please? Okay, so we'll come back at 11:30. Is that good? I see Commissioner Tarkanian probably had to step out for that reason. So
Okay.
rather than proceed, let's take a 10-minute break then.
Recording stop.
Okay, it's 11:30, so we'll return to session, and my apologies again, Mr. McCullough. I just had a lapse of thought there, so I'll put it that way. You can put that in the minutes. Okay, you may resume, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, Scott McCullough, Douglas County Project Manager. Back to the presentation about discussing the two methods of delivery, and we're still discussing the design, bid, build, how it works. The owner contracts separately with the architect and the contractor, who then contracts with consultants and subcontractors. It is linear, so it takes longer than the other method we're proposing, where the architect has to complete the design process before that bid documents are ready for bidding. A bid period happens and a general contractor submits a bid for consideration. There are advantages to design, bid, build. History, precedence, and familiarity. Checks and balances between designer and builder. Basis design can be less developed when you start design, and designer remains owner's agent throughout construction. And it is easiest to evaluate with low bid. CMAR, construction manager at risk, defining characteristics. Again, two separate contracts between the designer and builder. It's a fast-track process. Pre-construction services of a builder, and is qualification-based selection or best value selection process. It yields a guaranteed maximum price contract for consideration, and it also offers savings between the owner and CMAR. How it works. Again, there's a contract separate between the owner and the architect and the owner and the general contractor. But there's on the org chart, the dotted line represents a collaborative nature of the method where all three work in unison to find the best value to deliver a project. It is also the fast track process where both contracts can be let during the design phase of the project. The advantages of the CMAR method, again, checks and balances. It puts owner in control of the input and design. Basis design can be less developed. Architect remains owner agent throughout. Speed of delivery. Builder input during design on safety, quality, schedule, and most important, cost. I don't mean that. Safety is important, but cost is pretty important too. And it yields a guaranteed maximum price contract, a price, again, we know before construction. And it has an open book construction accounting where any questions are answered in regards to pricing. This is representation of from the architect's plans. Again, there's no way this represents the actual look of what we're going to have, but it's just a representation of the site and what it's going to look like out there in the middle of the green fields adjacent to Park Ranch. Update. Last January, this board approved a contract to TSK Architects for design. And at that same time, we've been working on the CMAR procurement through an RFP process. We're here today to consider a contract to the CMAR for pre-construction services. And then next 12 to 14 months, we'll go through design, bidding, and GMP development, and bring a GMP for consideration to start construction in the spring of 2024. And we're anticipating an 18-month build time to deliver the project in the fall of 2025.
GMP?
GMP, guaranteed maximum price contract. Thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing this and now talk to the relevance of the item today. Oh, darn. Pursuant to NRS procedure for selection for most qualified applicants, the county issued an RFP for proposal, request for proposal to construction managers at risk for the Douglas County Courthouse project. The project is comprised of two phases for the CMAR. First is a pre-construction services agreement presented to the board today for consideration. This contract will put the CMAR in place to assist, estimate, and develop a set of documents to publicly bid in alignment with our budget for the project. The second phase of the agreement will be a guaranteed maximum price contract that will be submitted to the county for consideration. The county received proposals and shortlisted 2 CMARC contractors for interviews, Core Construction and Plenium Builders. Both organizations that we interviewed are exceptional and have delivered projects locally, regionally, and nationally. Interview results are based on 5 criteria. First is staff qualifications. NRS requires that the staff that interviews is committed to our project. Second is experience. Courthouse construction is specialized, and experience is key to project success. Third is project management and quality control. Fourth is compensation. Both CMARC contractors submitted a fee proposal at interview. These costs are factored into the score, with the lowest earning the maximum points. The last is the State Contractors Board Certificate of Eligibility that is earned through longevity that benefits Nevada residents as a licensed Nevada contractor. It is the recommendation of the panel and Douglas County to award a contract to Core Construction for pre-construction services for the Douglas County Courthouse project in the amount of $145,000. I am available for questions.
Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Hales.
On that piece that showed the site,
Yes.
there were 2 buildings?
It was an architect's rendering at one time. The project involves 1, but again, it showed a future possibility of the site, is all that really represented. But what we're talking about is 1 building, approximately 55,000 square feet.
And I understand you had a 5-person committee, selection committee.
That is correct.
Can you tell me who served on that?
Is it a confidentiality, or is that no problem? Okay. It was myself, Assistant County Manager Jennifer Davidson, who is in the room right over there, Terry Willoughby, CFO, Phil Ritger, Director of Public Works, and Zach Wadelay from the District Attorney's Office.
Oh, you got the A team. That's good.
Commissioner Takane, Commissioner Noasad, any questions? Commissioner Rice? No, sir. I have no questions either. Based on that, we'll go to public comment and then come back to us. So anyways, what we're discussing today is whether or not we're going to accept a construction manager at risk with Core West. So please, I'd ask the public to keep their comments to the agenda item. Thank you.
Jason Gibson, the Maladministration Audit Committee for Douglas County. Fast track process for the new Jalic facility, which essentially benefits the owners. We don't know who the owners are, but they're likely stakeholders and shareholders who are employed by Douglas County, who are enriching themselves by a $64 million investment. We started in June of 2022 last year with a guesstimate of a $34 million investment. Of course, that had to come with 55 acres, not just 5, but 55. Big grasses, big lawns, big buildings. That was $5 million. So that put us close to a $40 million price tag that was signed off on at the year-end budget reports by Terry Willoughby and Patrick Cates, claiming that the investment was only going to cost $40 million, and of course Mark Gardner constantly playing down the total investment of this most absurd capital investment during the time of most unprecedented global and civil national unrest. Of course, when before John Angles retired, he brought to our attention that the interest on this senseless investment would run $17 million. $40 million plus 17 is $57 million. Plus $5 million for the land is about $63 million and some change. Of course, the budget, the Gardner and his business partners, Wes Rice and Walt Noasad, who's supposed to be on the audit committee for such projects, who neglected to review this last year like they were supposed to and should be involved in this meeting with this gentleman over here, but are not, rolled into the budget another $250,000 to $500,000 for consulting fees. Just rolled it right in there while everybody was fast asleep at the wheel. Existing JLEC facility is not user-friendly. We don't even have an online filing system in that court, and they want to expand it. And we have a case that we're defending. We'd like you to know, Douglas County, about what kind of business is being conducted, and it's perfect that Gardner would have me arrested for this. You can find us at criminal number 2023 CRE A00142 with regards to the detail as to the blatant maladministration of business that they call justice in this facility, which is unreal that you would even refer to it as such. It's nothing more than a corporate municipal meat grinder.
Additional public comment?
James McCullough for the record. I just want to say I'm on the Gardenville Ranchos. I'm a trustee on that board. We went through this same process with our South District pipeline replacement, which was a huge project because the old pipeline not only leaked, it was actually under people's yards. So move it to the street. It's a huge project. We looked at design, bid, build, and we decided to go with CMARS. I think it's a really good system. I'm really happy with the result. So I highly recommend the CMARS process. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Sensing none, we'll bring it back to the board for possible action. Any further questions or? Sensing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve $145,000 CMAR contract with CORE construction for the pre-construction services for the Douglas County Justice Center project as presented, and authorize the county manager to sign required documents.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Noasad to approve a $145,000 construction manager at risk CMAR contract with Core West as presented. Since no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0.
Can we have,
Thank you, Mr. McCullough.
can we have, maybe you all know, but did you bring a representative? Is there a representative here from CORE?
I did. I'd like to introduce Travis Coombs. He's the Vice President of Core Construction, Nevada Division, and also a Carson City resident or graduate, Carson High, local kid. Would you like him to say a few words? Travis, please. You sign in, state your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Travis Coombs. For the record, I'm Vice President with Core Construction. It's a privilege to be here today. I was thinking when we were interviewing for this project, Douglas County gave us our start here in Northern Nevada about 12 years ago with the Pinion Hills Elementary School project. Since then, we've been very fortunate to continue to serve the county in various aspects and through wonderful projects. I was the project manager on the Community and Senior Center project, and it's great to see those projects getting used by the community for their intended purpose. And we look forward to the opportunity to serve you guys on this upcoming justice project, and are just grateful for everything that the county has given to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. McCullough, and we'll move on to item number 6 for possible action, discussion, and direction to staff regarding legislative issues. I'm not sure on how that works, but discussion and direction to staff regarding legislative issues proposed by legislators or other entities permitted to fulfill bill draft requests that may impact Douglas County. The board may take action to take a position in support of or opposition on pending legislation, including AB 92, Office of County Counsel, AB 219, Open Meeting Law, AB 297, Pretrial Release, AB 314, Home-Based Businesses, AB 424, Open Meeting Law, AB 297, Pretrial I guess I'm repeating myself there. AB 424 Tahoe Bonds, AB 429 Nevada Air Service Development Fund, SB 51 Local Elected Officials Salaries, SB 92 Sidewalk Vendors, SB 155 Homeless Persons and Local Government, right? SB 176 Retiring Water Rights, SB 226 Public Works and Prevailing Wage, SB 233 Taxes on Heavy Equipment Rentals, SB 235 Pretrial Release, SB 272 Posting Information on Contracts, SB 354 Qualifications for Justice of the Peace, SB 433 Public Works and Prevailing Wage, or other bills included in a Douglas County Bill Tracker report included with the board packet and being presented by County Manager Patrick Cates. And just for the record here, the AB stands for Assembly Bill and the SB stands for Senate Bill. Is that correct? So,
Mr. Chairman, after that speech, I think we're going to need a lunch break.
hopefully we can put our county manager on 3 minutes here. No. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Patrick Cates. Hopefully you'll still have an appetite after this agenda item. Let me talk about where we are in the process, and then I'll talk about some specific bills. When we drafted this agenda item and published it, this was still very much a moving target, and it continues to be a moving target. So we kind of listed wholesale a lot of bills we haven't talked about before. I don't intend to talk about all those bills today. I will highlight some. I don't intend to ask this board to take any positions on any of the bills at this point in time, just because of where we're at in the session. The first deadline was originally April 14th for a bill to pass out of the first committee, the committee of the first house. And generally, if we're going to take a position on the bill, it's there that we would take that position. Unfortunately, the legislature, in their wisdom, gave themselves an additional week to introduce bills, which pushed that deadline beyond our last meeting. So we didn't see a lot of these until very recently, and now the deadline is the 25th to pass those bills out of the first house. So any bills that are still alive have gotten out of committee, and they've either been passed by the first house or they're on their way to be passed by the first house. The next deadline is May 19th, and that is the deadline for the bills to pass out of the committee of the second house. So once a bill gets through committee, gets on the floor, gets approved by the floor, then it goes over to the other house, and they start the process all over again. We did update your report. It's in your supplemental material. I know the one that was included in the original packet, again, was kind of a wholesale. It was also very small font. It was probably hard to see. We have a lot better report for you on page 21 of your supplemental packet, and that's what I'll refer to as I go through this. Let me get to the top here. And as I said, I'm just going to highlight certain bills, and please stop me if you have any questions. I'll briefly mention the China Spring budget. They had a hearing back in March. Closings should start next week of state budgets, so we'll be paying attention to that. But no movement on that as of yet. Some bills that the board has taken positions on that are noteworthy, that are still alive, is AB 20. AB 20 was the bill that provides changes to the state revolving fund for water projects. One of the things it does is allow those funds to be used to hook people up that are on septics to municipal services. This board supported that bill. That bill did pass and is through the assembly. AB 47, that is the bill, is an NACO bill that relates to off-highway vehicles. This board supported that bill. That also had a good hearing and passed the assembly. AB 52 is the Attorney General's open meeting law bill. This board supported that, and it also passed the Assembly. AB 68 was our bill, our Douglas County bill, that dealt with the funding formula for China Spring. That had a great hearing. That passed unanimously by the Assembly. So that's on its way to the Senate. I'm jumping down to AB 424. This is not a bill that we've talked about before. It's a high number bill, so it's one of those ones that came out late. This basically is a renewal of a program that's been in place for a number of years. These are bonds, these are state bonds that go for conservation projects, specifically for Lake Tahoe. It's to implement the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program. A lot of money has been spent at the lake by the state. These are state bonds paid for with state obligations. It's a good program. I gave support as staff to our lobbyists to speak in support of this legislation. And it allows a new issuance of bonds over the next biennium of $13 million. Moving to the Senate side, SB 20 is a NACO bill that this board supported. That deals with the filling of vacancies on the Board of County Commissions. That did pass out of committee. And last time I looked, it hadn't gotten through the floor yet, but they haven't hit that deadline yet. So I expect that to pass the Senate and then head on over to the Assembly. Likewise with SB 21, that's a bill that adjusts the population caps in statute. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to SB 20, the filling of commissioner vacancies, and I believe we offered an amendment to that, and the amendment passed as well with the.
Correct. It was amended during the hearing. There was a lot of discussion. The way it was written originally, it was open-ended. Basically, a commission could decide what process they were going to follow. And so they added language that would kind of put some guardrails and parameters on how a board does that. SB 21 is the pop cap. That also passed through committee, and we're waiting that to be approved by the Senate. And I haven't checked that this morning, so it may have already passed.
And can you tell me what that pop cap was?
It adjusts multiple statutes that determine which laws apply to which counties, and generally what they're doing there is separating Clark and Washoe from the rurals. And there was some issue there about Lyon County. Lyon County's cap's actually higher than the 50,000 that they were putting it to. Carson City didn't want to be under that cap. There was some discussion, and they added language that kind of singles out Lyon County to keep them where they want to be in the rural category. And they do that periodically as the state grows. They, every so year go through and look at those pop caps and make sure each county's in the category and has the obligations that the state intends them to have.
Just so I understand, so are they still going by the population amount, or are they giving certain exemptions to certain counties?
They're going by the population amounts, but there is some language in there specific to Lyon County.
So I guess my concern there was that this pop cap is based on the U.S. Census that takes place every 10 years. So that next one is 2030, and so I was hoping that we could make sure that pop cap took into account Douglas County looking forward, that we would still remain under those guidelines, so that because I think originally, did it say 52,000? Was it, Mr. Cates?
I would have to look at the language.
And I think it would be very easy for us by 2030 to be over that 52. So I was hoping that language was a little bit higher, so.
Right. Next bill is a bill, SB 22, that this board supported. That is a NACO bill that deals with public notice in newspapers. It allows us to do so on the internet. Initially, that had some opposition from the Press Association, but it did pass out of committee, and we expect that to be approved by the Senate. SB 81. That's Senator Daley's bill. This board opposed that bill. That deals with regional planning. Originally, that bill, under existing law, the county managers of the counties in northwestern Nevada have to get together annually and talk about regional planning issues. We do a joint report. I think, in my opinion, and the opinion of most of the other counties, it was busy work. Counties work together when they need to. Senator Daley's bill expanded that, extended that, and actually allowed cities to participate and legislators, and would have a voting say in what those reports look like. We continue to be opposed with that, along with Lyon and Story County, with the amendment that was passed. The amendment still allows legislators to participate, but they have no vote, and in cities as well. So they can be in the room, but they don't have any say in what that report looks like. That was acceptable to Washoe County, was not acceptable to the 3 rural counties that this impacts. It did pass along those lines, so I do expect it to be approved by the Senate. Basically, I don't like the bill, and I don't think I don't think it's necessary. I think it's I think the intent long term is to have a regional planning agency that would take control out of local jurisdictions to decide planning issues. And this has much more to do with issues of development in Story County with their industrial park and services from City of Sparks and that sort of thing. But it does look like it's going to pass, and if it passes along these lines, it's not the end of the world. It's status quo. Those county managers are still going to get together. It just means we'll have some legislators looking over our shoulder, but they won't have anything to say about what the report looks like.
Now, I know the last time you came to us on that one in particular, I think this board authorized you to change our stance on that if Lyon County changed their stance. Is that right? So
Correct.
They haven't changed their stance, so
No.
that's where we still are.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to jump down to SB 102. This is Senator Goygachia's bill. This board supported that. It makes an appropriation to the DCNR, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, to award money for local jurisdictions to develop water resource plans. That's prior legislation that was passed that requires that. I think the deadline for us to do our plan is, off the top of my head, I think it's 2029. It's a few years out. I actually expected this to die. It has not had a hearing, but it was declared exempt. And when a bill is declared exempt, that means it's not subject to any of the deadlines. So the fact that leadership was willing to declare it exempt tells me it may still get approved. So we'll see how that goes. Another bill that I wanted to highlight that we haven't talked about before is SB 176. That's a few rows down. This also is Senator Goygachia's bill. This also relates to water, and it's to create an account for the purchase and retiring of water rights. I don't think this impacts us directly. We're not considered an over-appropriated basin here in the Carson Valley, but it's an interesting mechanism that they're setting up, and it's aimed at those basins that are over-appropriated. I know, like down in Nye County, they have some issues with that. So it's an interesting approach, and I thought it was worth keeping track of, but I don't think it directly impacts us. That was amended and passed out of committee. So we expect that to be approved by the Senate. SB 226 and also SB, 433, those are both bills that deal with prevailing wage, and it expands the applicability of prevailing wage to projects. These both were passed out of committee. I expect them to be approved by the Senate. We're just watching those because the more you expand prevailing wage, the more it's going to cost us to do projects. Just for instance, I believe it's the first bill. A lot of agencies will do a lease purchase. So you have a private developer build a building for you, and then you lease purchase it back. It's a private development, a private builder build. It's not subject to prevailing wage. This would make that subject to prevailing wage. It's just going to increase cost. It's one of the reasons it costs so much to build government buildings. So we're watching those. Let's see, I've lost my place here. SB 233, that is a bill. We have not talked about that one. It does have impact to Douglas County. It revises provisions on personal property taxes in relation to heavy equipment. And so if you are a heavy equipment renter, you would be subject to a lower tax rate than if it was property that you had purchased. This one, so we have, just as an example, we have Ahern here in Gardnerville, and they rent equipment. This would lower their taxes. It would lower the income to the county as well. This is a bill that's come up in prior sessions, and it generally has failed under arguments that we're treating one type of business different than others. It has been opposed by the Assessors Association. So our assessor has been active on that. But it did get out of a work session, but I'm not sure what's going to happen to it because it was actually re-referred to the Finance Committee, to Senate Finance. And usually they do that if they're looking at fiscal impacts. Sometimes that means it'll go forward. Sometimes it means you'll never see it again. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with that bill, but we're keeping an eye. SB 235, this is a bill that relates to pretrial release. You may recall the legislature passed legislation last session that requires a pretrial hearing within 48 hours of somebody being arrested. And this board took action to appropriate additional funds to both the DA's office and to the courts to deal with that impact, because it basically required court hearings on the weekends. And there's different attempts to try to address that. This bill provides discretions to judges, and it was passed out of committee. We expect that to pass the Senate. We'd be thankful for any relief from that requirement. And SB 354, this is a bill we haven't talked about yet. This relates to the qualifications of justices of the peace. I think it's very relevant with the announcement of Judge Glasson's retirement. Originally, the bill would require justice of the peace to be an attorney. The bill has been amended to have training requirements. So we want to take a look at that, particularly in the context of the retirement of our judge. And I have in the report bills that have died, that have not passed their deadlines, and I'll just highlight a few of them. SB 51 is not a bill that we have talked about. It was an early bill, and I didn't bring it to you because, as originally written, applied only to Nye County. And it addressed the salaries of the Nye County commissioners. And NACO offered an amendment to expand that bill to cover all county commissions, and what it would do was set a new payment level for county commissions, and county commissions would have the option to vote to not receive that or to receive a lesser amount. And it was also amended to address other elected officials at the county level. Now, I'm not sure what's going on with this bill. I should have double-checked this morning, but it appears that it has died. I believe that the legislature's intent is to address not only state but local government elected officials. It hasn't been adjusted in a number of years. So I believe that issue is going to get fixed somehow, but maybe this bill is not going to be the instrument for that. So we're keeping an eye on that. I'm sure that issue will crop up somewhere else. SB 64, that was a bill related to school districts that would give this board some authority to appoint a member of that school board. That died. and you opposed that, and it died. And the other bill that SB 213 that you voted to oppose, that was the bill that concerned our Tahoe Douglas Transportation District room tax funding, and having that money go to the Visitors Authority rather than the county. That bill also died and never received a hearing. The only thing I would mention about dead bills is there are zombie bills. No bill is ever dead. If the legislature is so inclined to bring that language back, they can take that and amend some other bill and strip the language out of it and bring it back. So nothing's dead until the legislature goes home. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question. So SB 51 is choking to death?
SB 51 did not meet the statutory deadline, was not declared exempt, so it is dead.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Nothing? Nope. Okay, very good. Public comment? Yep.
Jason Gibson, Bud Justice, Citizens Coalition for Justice in Douglas County. With regard to SB 235, which revises provisions relating to pretrial release, know that the methodologies used and deployed in Douglas County are blatantly fraudulent. During my recent experience in being arrested for an alleged incident, thank you, Mark Gardner, I experienced situation with my pretrial release, and it is such that you are denied your basic access to due process, no phone calls, although you're supposed to get that within 3 hours, excessive use of force to where the officers cut your wrists with the handcuffs. They throw you into a cold cell for at least 24 hours. They do not allow you to access the law library because there is no law library. There's supposed to be one in every jail-like facility, but that's not what you got here. And they want to expand it at the tune of $64.5 billion. The reason why they're opposed to this pretrial legislation is because they have a saying in jail, and that is heads in beds. The longer they can keep you in there, the more money they're making. And I would bet that a third of the people that are in this little retirement community of a monster jail-like facility are simple men who are trying to make a living, who are getting railed by debt collectors and pirates who are excessively looking for something to do and have nothing better to do but police cats and dogs. Now, when I tried to exercise my basic right to due process in producing habeas corpus, I was denied. There, again, is no law library access. There is no kiosk access if they do not want you to have it. You do not get a phone call out. So essentially your family is wondering where you're at and you're abducted for 2 days and without any kind of contact with the outside world. Furthermore, there is no exercise facility in that jail. Like they've got you in full-blown lockdown, no windows. They've painted over all of the light in the windows in the facility. When you go to brush your teeth, you're given a thimble on the end of your finger that cuts your gums. You cannot brush your teeth without cutting your gums. The showers don't work. On the way out the door, law enforcement wanted to steal my paperwork because they made a critical error on their charging instruments. So we were missing documents on the way out. We were able to recover those. But what you've got are officers falsifying charging instruments. You have a blatant violation of due process and the right to competent counsel. You have a blatant maladministration practice between the indigent defense services, the courts, the cops, obstructing access to
Thank you, Mr.
discovery
Gibson. You've
evidence,
exceeded
and
your
much,
3
much
minutes.
more.
So, appreciate it. Any additional public comment? Sensing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Any additional questions by the board of Mr. Cade's report? Well, we'll continue to watch, right? Continue to watch. And you said that so the passage out of the first committee of the first house has been extended to the 25th of April. Did I hear that right?
For the record, Patrick Cade, so the 25th of April is the deadline to pass it off the floor of the first house.
Pass it off of the floor.
Yeah, the deadline to pass it out of committee, they extended that for a week, so it was April 21st. It was right after our last meeting.
Okay.
Which is why a lot of these bills are.
So that'll be
you haven't had
tomorrow.
opportunity
Tomorrow will be the final day to pass out of committee, and then the 25th is off the floor of that first house.
The committee deadline's already passed.
Oh, I thought you said the 21st. Today's the 20th.
Let me look. I think I got my dates mixed up. I'm sorry. Where's that? April 14th. Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke. April 14th was the original deadline for committee passage, and they extended it to the end of that week. So last week was the committee deadline. First house passage is the 25th.
Okay. Okay. Sensing no further questions, thank you very much for that report. We'll go to item number 7. You're not recommending any. Okay. So, item number 7, for presentation only, announcements, reports, updates from county commission members, including updates on various boards and/or commissions that they may be a member of or a liaison to, or meetings, functions they have attended, and any request by a commissioner for a discussion of a future agenda item. So we'll start down at the end there with Ms. Hales.
I'm not exactly sure this is the right place to bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up here. So I have a son who's 6'4", and when he does dishes at our house, well, anywhere really, he just spreads his legs really wide so he can get low enough to actually wash the dishes. And I saw the same stance today. I've noticed that our podium isn't quite high enough for taller folks. And you can move the microphone down, but even when it's all the way up, tall folks are bending down to reach the microphone. I think we need a taller podium.
We've asked that for the last year. They would like us hunching over.
Well, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Tarkanian? I'm sorry.
About that. I have more.
Okay.
I have attended the Carson Valley Arts Council board meeting. They have 2 upcoming concerts, events. Don Gatto Latin Band on May 6th. I think it's going to be great. Come take one of these if you want. That's at 7 at CVIC Hall. And then on May 21st, a Sunday afternoon, they have Jazz and Art Festival at Heritage Park, which I think will also be a great event. I wanted to note also from that meeting that I'm a little fuzzy about community development block grants, but they applied for one of those and they were ranked 6th, and the top 5 got significant funding, so that was painful. But they're doing good work in really going after a lot of grants. And finally, from that group, they are working with the Arts and Public Places effort with Deborah Sewell to make some kind of recommendations regarding arts and public places. Their recommendations will go first to the Parks and Rec Committee, and then to the Planning Commission, and then to us. So I look forward to doing some work on what we can do with public art. Tomorrow, I have a South Shore Transportation Management Authority meeting, and I've given a lot of thought as to how to approach that, continuing thought on how to approach that. So I will do my best to represent us with that group. And last night, Commissioner Gardner and I attended the Carson Water Subconservancy District meeting. Those are great meetings, by the way. They have a lot of good energy and a lot of good things always going on. But I will just note from that precipitation in the Carson River Basin is 291% above average. Snowpack, 320% above average. And other notable pieces from that meeting, they showed us video of the weir in Fallon, Churchill County, that is letting water escape out into the desert. And that was very impressive. They're building a second weir to protect some subdivisions from flooding. They also, in contrast, showed Douglas County Alderman Canal failures from the flooding, and that was just interesting. But from that committee, I want to note that on May 17th, during the summer, that group does field trips to various county locations to learn about water situations. And on May 17th, they are coming to Douglas. They're going to look at Mud Lake, and then they're going to look at our ditch canal system with Gary Ayazi. And I think that's going to be really valuable. And it occurred to me, I'm not sure how logistics would work, but it might be worthwhile for all the commissioners to be invited along on that particular field trip. I don't know that they would discuss anything that could ever come before us as a board, or if we'd have to agendize it, or I don't know how the logistics would work, but I think it would be time well spent. Thanks, that's all.
I just have one thing. I attended the TRE GID meeting with Chairman Gardner, and well, first of all, everybody who's been up there knows how bad the roads are there. Apparently, there's been a lot of damage through the flooding, and FEMA will come in and pay a significant portion of that if they can get enough funds to come up with the difference. I think this is a great opportunity and I want to take this off the chairman's shoulders because he represents that district. This is something that the whole county should be concerned about. The safety of the roads, but in the fact that we can get the federal government to pay a big portion of this, I think it's an opportunity. We ought to try to, whether you direct staff or have the board discuss possible ways to take advantage of everything that the GID can get through FEMA with the help of the county.
Thank you, Commissioner Trujillo. Commissioner
First
Morissette?
off, I am a member on the Regional Transportation Commission, and I missed the last meeting because of a medical problem at home, trying to decide whether we should take my wife to the ER or not. As it turned out, 15 minutes after the meeting began, we decided it was, the doctor and I decided it wasn't necessary. But anyway, from the vantage point, referring to the 291%, is that what you said? From vantage point of where I live up on top of the ridge in the East Ridge, I watch the water in the bend in the river. There's a little stick of land that comes out, and in the dry years, it's very prominent. Now, it's disappearing. The other things I notice is that the low points on the valley floor, the water table's coming up, so those depressions begin filling up, and then they go down. So the water flow is consistent in cold days, but in warm days it comes up. So we're going back and forth like this, but I'm thinking next week when we hit the 70s, we might have some action on the valley floor. That's all I have.
All right, since our last meeting, I attended the RTC meeting that you were missed, and also a meeting with TDVA. The event center is coming along beautifully. The one problem that we've been having is getting the electric switch systems. The equipment for that was supposed to be here several months ago, and it has not appeared. So we decided to cancel the contract with the scheduled provider to go with another company that can guarantee delivery of it in a very short period of time at a premium. So we discussed the fact that with all of the events that have already been scheduled, we are still money ahead by paying the premium and being able to open the event center on August the 1st. So amazingly, after we opted to go with a different company, the prior company said, "Oh, by the way, we found what you need." And so we will see how that plays out. And we were told it was somewhere on a cargo ship out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, sitting there waiting to get offloaded. But somehow or another, it may be getting offloaded sooner rather than later. So that'll be interesting to see how that continues. The work on the interior is continuing. I have not had a chance to see it in about 2 months, but I was told that the interior work is going along beautifully, and that they are booking events beginning in August through 2025. The LTVA has won 3 bids for industry events, which are reoccurring. One is Go West, which is the Travel Trade Industry Conference, the West Tech Educational Conference, and Travel Nevada's Rural Roundup will be hosted in the event center, and that they are recurring. And they are, believe it or not, turning down bookings because of fear of being overbooked. So the event center is being embraced, and I look forward to an August opening. Thank you.
Well, the other commissioners have pretty much given my report. So
Don't do it necessary now.
no, I don't feel like it's necessary for me to chair, so that's good. I think, and I appreciate Commissioner Tarkanian's observation that, we do have some moral obligation to help our GIDs as much as we possibly can. So anyways, with that, I will conclude my comments, and we'll go to closing public comment. So.
Jason Gibson, the House of Gibson. You can find us at 775-309-1262. Please Facebook Megatrends 2023 and State of the Nation.
Multiple companies, all right? We are seeing potentially 100,000 restaurants under a cyber attack.
This is regards to the critical infrastructure attacks on our country,
Pharmaceutical companies.
which your municipal state officials will not come clean with, they will not discuss.
As well, due to quote glitches that could be potential.
Massive cyber wars,
We're also seeing more AI warnings from top experts.
artificial intelligence, that's the 1260 timing frequency, codified into Terminator bots and corporate body politic.
And inside the U.S. because they are leading us down this path and they are unleashing these technologies onto us, and we're moving.
Our government employees are lying to us.
With these cyber attacks, with these emergency warnings that they're giving us, and
Train derailments, chemical spills, hot war with China, Russia, Iran, Iraq, Syria.
and with Southwest. So Southwest Airline has revealed that they experienced
Major disruptions in travel,
and we keep having these glitches which are not
banking crisis, planetary moral emergencies,
attacks on our critical infrastructure.
like our food distribution.
And you can see here Southwest chaos with more than 17.
Total chaos. No discussion here, no awareness here, no act which demonstrates any kind of responsibility to prepare the people for a total discontinuation of life as we know it.
In January, they had a system-wide computer outage that grounded.
System-wide disruptions while you're all getting rich, ignoring the inevitable events. I'm talking, Mr. Rice, to you, sir. Rather than localize our agriculture or create alternative energy solar farms, they want to build a new jail. Just goes to show you how in touch these people are. We're looking at something that civilization has never experienced in the entire history of the planet. We're not even talking about the biosphere-noosphere transition or the micronova event that's going to cook us up. How many Christians out there actually believe in your scriptures and the Great Flood? We're living in those times, people. You're being misled here.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Is there any additional public comment? Sensing none, the meeting is hereby adjourned.